Ready, Brandon?
Yeah, it's going.
Well, I think the first thing that got started was a meeting. I forget what they called it, but it was really financial. We'd get together and talk with about the manufacturers of speed equipment would get together and talk about who is paying their bills and who isn't, and who is running up big bills on open account and might be in trouble. And they'd buy from one manufacturer and get behind on payments, so they'd buy from another. So we wanted to know who owed who money and wasn't paying their bills. But sometimes people would run up big bills and squander the money and not be able to pay for the merchandise they bought. And they call that another name. Anyway, Phil Wine used to get up and say, "We ought to have our own show." I said, "Are you kidding? Would anybody come to that?" Which became the SEMA show, but at the time we used to think, who would come to that? Well, anyway, a funny thing happened. Little cars that you put together and glue together. Little cars that you would glue together and with the glue of different cars, and some of them were NASCAR race cars. And I saw them for sale, and I said, "Wow, look at that! They're including a few decals in here from shock absorber company and a pure oil gasoline company and this and that." I said, "I'm going to write to them and tell them, please put my decals in there too, because the NASCAR racers, they use my cams." And the kids used to love to paste those little decals on there when they build these little cars, model cars. And by God, after I said, "I don't want any money, I just like to have him include my decals in there." And sure enough, they appeared. Well, then one day we got a call to come to Mattel Toy Company downtown, over in Venice, Boulevard, in Venice. And they wanted to know if those manufacturers were organized. What do you mean organized? There's only about 50 of us at the most that made speed equipment for hot rods and race cars. Well, he says, "You ought to be organized." We are organized, our toy companies, and we have our own lawyer. If any registration comes out against us, we're right there at Washington, D.C. to stop it. Because all it takes is another lawyer to tell them, "Hey, you can't put that on." That's putting a lot of work. A lot of people that are earning a living doing what you're trying to sell, you're trying to put them out of business. Because it only takes one lawyer to do it. And we all chip in for that lawyer. So you guys ought to be organized. They tried to take the glue out of the kit, out of the thing, because the kids were sniffing the glue.
Right.
We got it back in there with our lawyer. So if you guys are organized, so they decided to call it the Speed Equipment Manufacturers Association. And one day when I had a meeting, it was a very small thing. They made me president when I wasn't there, and there was nothing to do in the early days anyway. And that was what, I forget what the year.
69 or 70?
It's over 50 years old now.
Yeah, so probably 69 or 68.
Well, at first, manufacturers would be elected president for a year. Next year, another manufacturer would be president for a year. And these manufacturers also had their own business to run, so they didn't do a great job of running the thing. So first thing you know, they decided Edelbrock was president for a while, and different people would. So now they're going to bring in a businessman to run it, and that made it grow and boom. And little by little, it got bigger and bigger.
Where was your first one?
Huh?
First SEMA show?
Oh, it's hard to say. One time they were in a Dodger Stadium, which is no good for a show.
Yeah.
That was terrible. And then they had, and pretty soon it'd be, and SEMA decided to be, hey, we've got to get that word speed off of there. Make it specialty instead. And then, you know, how many dues can we collect from 50 manufacturers? We want to, let's make it specialty equipment merchandisers association. That made 100 or 1,000 times more people wanted to join then, because they sell the equipment, and that made it grow. But another company had already, a guy named Noel Carter had already started a company called Speed and Custom Manufacturers Association. I'll get you one of their old guys. And he had a monthly, and he made, the first thing he did was make a mailing list of all the people in the United States that were selling speed equipment and doing custom work on cars.
A mailing list, like emails.
And the way he made that list was in the yellow pages. You look under sport, speed and sport or something, car, and there were where people paid to be in there with a bigger ad than a regular list, a little listing or a little bigger ad. And downtown LA, him and his wife and some helpers, they have the yellow pages of every city in the United States. You can't take them home with you, but you can copy out of there. And he made a mailing list that was really up to date and accurate, because all the people that were in that category in the United States were paying their bills to the telephone company. So he had the best list.
Right.
Now that he had the best list, he thought, I think I'll start my own organization, not SEMA, Speed and Custom News or something. Oh, by golly, he was doing some work for another company that displayed at Disneyland on the convention center. And while he went there to do some work for that manufacturer, he was the advertising manufacturer for them. He said, wow, why don't I during wintertime when the racing stops and everyone back east is shut down, I'll put on a show here at the convention center in Disneyland. The kids and the wife can go to the Disneyland, and the owners and so by golly, all the people in SEMA went to his show. They were, all the manufacturers came to that show. So he had control of it for 2 years, but pretty soon people began to take notice, and rivalry come up he's coming up in the world. He's making money, and the show is very popular. And they made some kind of a deal to buy him out, and they reneged on the deal. Anyway, he lost control. See, Hot Rod Magazine was owned by Bob Peterson. They had a lot of control over this whole thing. All the advertisers advertised in there. So, but how did SEMA get started? When they called us at Mattel or Revell Toys, they said, by the way, those contracts you signed with that other company, which belongs to our organization on those little toys they make, our lawyer doesn't think that'll hold water, because what they had done back east, they decided we'll write the Peterson Publications, Hot Rod Magazine, and send out this form, and we will ask for this. We will ask for all the speed equipment manufacturers to give us one of their decals, or one or two, and we will print those in small and include them in our kits, our little decals, miniaturized. Exclusive rights. I never got one of those applications, but so they got the address of all the manufacturers of speed equipment, so they had control now of those decals, and that made them, that would hurt them, because they wanted to be able to put the decals in there too. And so they really called us in about that and told us to get organized. So they did organize, and it was a very small thing and very slow going. And the name had to be changed to Specialty Equipment Merchandise. And that made it grow 1,000 times bigger, because it depended on dues. Join our organization. We have our own lawyer. In case legislation comes out against old cars, trying to get old cars off the street, and our lawyer will be there to tell them, don't you know this is a big business, restoring these old cars? There's a lot of people employed in this, and so that's what they did. So that's what they have. They watch the legislation.
They go and lobby Congress.
Huh?
They go and lobby Congress.
Right. Yeah, they lobby type thing. Yeah.
They're in the Washington. They're in the government.
So that's the way it got started, and they got real big.
When they went to Vegas, it really got big.
And they put everything they can think of to make more people come.
Sort of that marketing.
And the funny thing, they say, this is just for the trade only. In other words, buyers, people that are involved in it. But if you go to it, you see that it's all tire kickers and decal collectors and people that know people in the business or have some associated, but they're not there to buy. It's supposed to be for buyers.
It's social.
And they have a little racing going on and sliding, what do they call it? The drifting and all that, and anything they can think of it. And then and they sell every booth they could possibly sell, including a lot of space outside. Well, this year it's canceled, of course, but so on account of this, and I even took in the wheel and tire business was a separate business and had their own magazine. That came into SEMA too, and other little magazines. It all come into one big thing. And we used to call it SEMA show, the Wheel and Tire Show. and we can't sell speed equipment there anymore because it really isn't hardcore. So another magazine, so another association got started, and it's called
PRI.
Performance Racing Industry Show.
And SEMA bought that recently.
And it was become very successful. It was what we call the hardcore racing show. And we would go into that. And they had so much money that they bought that show. Because their book more or less closed for the time being on account of the virus. So that's a general idea of how it got started.